Here yet. As per usual, welcome to. This is going to be episode number 8. So, this is episode 3 in week 3. We've got Saturday, the 25th of April. We are at 11:35 Central Standard Time. And I am under a squeeze because I have other podcasting duties this weekend, and I said I'd get 3 of these in a week. So we're gonna hang out. We're gonna do a little reading for a minute as soon as I put out a little notification. I should have something prepared for you to watch while I put out notifications, shouldn't I? Let's see what we can do. Let's go to photos. Let's look for notifications. And, oh, that's all part of stuff. Let's go to albums. Ooh, I bet we haven't looked at Hoover in a minute. Here you go. Look at this while I send out some ads. I wasn't even sharing. Sorry, Watchback. Trying to do too much. So when the watershed, which is here just north of Birmingham, fills, this water here can rise all the way up over the banks and in fact flood this neighborhood and its main street back to the X. X marks a spot. So what we have here are what are obvious saw marks here in these rocks. Now, that's one. And then a few steps. There's two. And this one I just saw is cool because of the curved nature of it. And as you can see, these rocks are sticking out of the ground, just like the rocks that build the pyramid you can see from Google's space satellite. Welcome, everybody, to what we're calling Finding Things Within and Without. This is our third episode of our third week attempting this. I say our, but it's just me. It's just me. Well, I might as well, I mean, I'll let you see this. You might as well finish it, huh? Even though this is not today's topic, I was trying to be producerly and mindful of watchbacks while I was sending out a link. X is acting up today, or more precisely, Riverside, I suppose. And there. That's the end of that. Let's come back to you and get this number 7. No, it's number 8. So I began last night. I don't know. It was like 11:30. I was going to try a little late night and reading, but X was not streaming properly here. So I added Facebook. I had to go to the trouble. Remember my password. So I think we're streaming on Facebook now. I haven't even checked to see if that's working. It says live. So, welcome anybody from wherever you're watching. I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm not going to share the YouTube link maybe, and let's just see who shows up on Facebook. So again, for anybody not familiar with what's going on, I'm towards the end, I would say, of my self-education on how to sort of run this thing, and do it successfully by myself also. Um, so you're seeing that in real time, right? That's one reason I don't. I tested this week, going ahead and learning how to schedule, and I put that out. I did schedule one episode as part of this growing process. Anyhow, to stay on point, I was going to do a late night episode last night, but I saw X wasn't streaming or working, and so I just closed it out and went to bed. I got up this morning and no X. It's still not working. So bummer. Sorry for guys that have been seeing us on X. What we're going to do today, as soon as I make sure I'm paying attention to chat, should anyone show up, and I settle in and say good morning to anyone that is watching now. Good afternoon, I suppose, if you're on the East Coast. That's probably backwards, isn't it? Thus far in this series, we've looked at a lot. We've looked at a lot right around me geographically. We've looked at a lot that has to do with the native population, and of course with the set and stage on which the DeSoto expedition, the encountering of Tuscaloosa and the Battle of Mobila would have played out. So that has really been what you've seen, other than the little video I played to keep you busy for a second. That ventures into the antediluvian territory. That little teaser there, which I think we're going to do at the end of this episode. But I thought it fitting, I suppose, as I have given everyone a visual. I've tried to keep my commentary to a minimal, outside of using words like power and magical, right? But I've been trying to give you this visual of this territory, at least so far. So it seemed appropriate to me that what we do here with our next hour or so together is begin by reading through this particular, DeSoto Chronicle that I have on hand. This is even volume 2 of the 2-volume set put out by the University of Alabama, and I think there's something like a total of 13 accepted chroniclers or something like that. 300 or so, of this 900-man expedition, I think is what made it out of Mexico alive, again, roughly. So there are many variations. So just to clarify, what I'm reading to you is not like, the one, right? Some of the details which we might come across vary from chronicler to chronicler. It might have been a day between this named town and that named town, and one dude and another dude, it was 3 days or 2 days, and the names of the towns were a little bit reversed, or things like this that occur when you start reading, the various chronicles. So we obviously won't be getting really bogged down in any of that. I may very well, depending on how the reading goes and what we discover, and how, if we achieve my purpose in that, we might pull out a map, because I have found many of these places, at least Mobila for sure, and the surrounding named towns and areas. We might do that. But what I'm hoping to achieve here, what's up, Sarah? Yo, what can you say about Sarah, Look at me here, trying to do this thing by myself, and I'm going to carry on one way or another, but always the first yo is this young lady who's going through her own It's a fucking firestorm, is the way to call it, especially down there in southern Georgia. Those pine, forests, essentially. I mean, that's just turpentine, you know? So, pine bomb. How you faring, Sarah? I know we got our update this morning, but honestly, thank you. That just sort of deepens, my gratitude is what I'm saying. Sarah has her damn hands full, and her precious family's life, they're in her hands as they're breathing in smoke and watching ash fall and watching emergency vehicles overhead. It's a wild world right now, guys. Saturday. How's your Saturday? Yeah, we do the rain dance. We got a whisper last night. I mean, it was, nice, the breeze, and the ground is still, you can see the asphalt is a little moist. We got a nice little rain. I don't know the amount, but it's all these massive storms, right? I've even watched the forecast for today, tomorrow, and the forecasts. You see these massive storms bubbling up right in the center of the continent, right, Sarah? And usually, like always in my memory, that meant, oh no, watch out. I'm here in Alabama, right? Because these storms that form from Dallas up to Illinois, right? They move west to east, and then we're gonna get it. Atlanta's gonna get it. You're gonna South Georgia. You're gonna get it. Okay, but what's happening now is like it gets to fucking Louisiana, Mississippi, and like where'd it go? What happened to it? And we get these little remnants. So I don't know whether its weather patterns are not doing what they usually tend to do. I am no meteorologist, but you tell me. I'm doing a rain dance for you, though. We've supposedly got more coming in today. It's sort of like a 35-40% all day here, overcast. So I'll spend my excess time outside. Just not that it'll do shit, but I mean, I know you need it bad, 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 like life-saving bad. I saw something like 100 homes so far. I mean, something. These numbers just give everybody a scope. Plus businesses, plus acres is what, tens of thousands now with containment. I remember you said this morning, Sarah, at 10%, and you're supposed to get half an inch. Well, that's what I mean. It's fizzling out, right? Like it's just as it comes our way. You watch these radars. It's not normal. I don't know what it is. Is it natural, not normal? Is it man's messing with it, not normal? I don't know. But I've been here all my life, and it's not normal. Whichever way you want to look at it. Okay. So listen, let's get to a stated mission. And Sarah, thank you very much for joining, and for all those that watch us back. And I don't know if I can keep up with folks on Facebook or not. So I don't know how it's working out on Facebook. Welcome if you're watching there. What we're going to do here is so far, and if you haven't seen any yet, go back and watch. I've labeled these past or first 7 episodes. This will be 8 on showcasing you, showing you, the land that plays part in these stories. I've begun, cracking open some of the discoveries. We haven't delved much into the DeSoto evidence or anything like that because I have plenty of resources available for people that wish to, dive deeper into that. But what I've been wanting to do is first begin this process. Good morning, histories, myths, and legends. Yeah, we got a show tonight, man. So I was looking at the clock and, the girls are here and I was like, I promised myself 3 episodes, and damn it, that means I think I got to go now, in order to fit the rest of the day in. So that's what we're doing. We're not going to do a whole lot other than this. Whatever engagement pops up. Yeah, love you too. Love you too, Sarah. Where's that heart? There's a heart somewhere. I bet it won't because it's just an emoji. Will it let me? Yeah, there we go. All right. Good morning, guys. Afternoon, sir. So, yeah, let me not get off track for these guys in the watchbacks. Um, Chat's not off track. You hear the producer? He's here with me too this morning. No, the chat is not off track. The chat is very much part of the point, the community of all this business we're up to. But my hope for today, my general outline for the next hour and a half, is we're going to do a little reading specifically looking for, descriptions and the time that the expedition was going through the territories and the lands, which I've been fairly well showing you so far, right? I think that puts a nice cap. We're here at third episode, third week. I know it's not quite 9 yet because I only did 2 the first week. But still, so that feels appropriate. So however long that takes, we may end up reading some Abila story, but that's the plan on this sort of Irish weather Saturday morning I've got outside, hoping the Irish weather goes Sarah's way. And we're going to read specifically about what visually I've been sort of, showing you guys thus far in this series. And then I think at the end, thus far, sort of my outline for anybody watching or watching back, at the end, I want to watch one small episode of mine of antediluvian Alabama, simply because thus far it would be inappropriate to close out, in some way this practice weeks of mine without touching on it, because I haven't yet. So it feels appropriate to pick maybe one of the smaller, whatever, less impactful, but to me, interesting, one of those 9 episodes, and just take a look at it with you guys. So yeah, that's my plan. I'm going to start now. What's going on, Ricardo? How's Wisconsin? So tornadoes, it looks like, again, up your way today. I should have put it in our group chat. Videos by, I think it's Max Velocity and Ryan Hall Y'all on YouTube. They're pretty damn detailed, and it looks like your area is getting really spicy. Either later today or later tomorrow. So please check on that. And when I get off, if you haven't, I'm going to send you these YouTube videos. So I have many portions marked here, and Jacob ate the page right about the beginning of sort of Mabilla, which I've already, to anybody who's been following my work, I mean, you've seen me put out and show many places where Nick from Occult Rejects, what's up, bud? I bet you're probably on live right now. But anyway, it came and filmed. So, you've seen me just tell the story. But what I'm concerned a little bit about more here is, now that you've seen this land, let's give you one of the surviving sort of descriptions of generally what was around here, population-wise, culture-wise, that kind of thing. So that's why we may or may not get far in the Mabilla story, because you've heard me tell it a bunch. But we're looking for some more. You've seen me at the Coosa River. You've seen me talk about, well, imagine it. Well, how do you do that, right? Okay, so, all right, here's the beginning of where he meets Tuscaloosa. So let's back up into Coca's territory, and I'll give you a visual on what I mean by Jacob 8:3-24. I've read this book the whole time, right? It's in there. Anyway, what was on that page? So this would have been before they left Coca, right, or Coosa. And we're getting ready to meet Tuscaloosa. So we are missing a few weeks, because on this page here they rested, 8 to 12 weeks before they left Coca. So Coca is kind of where we're going to do a little reading from. I will probably call him Coosa because, correct or not, that is the way it is everywhere, now today when you see the Coosa, Coosa River, as you've seen in this series. I mean, this is who we're talking about. This is dude Coca is how it's written, but again, translated from Portuguese to, English, vice versa, and, but Coosa. So the chapter before concerning the fearless chief Tuscaloosa was the chief Coosa offers his state to the governor, as DeSoto, for an establishment and settlement, right? So very, very different encounters. But let's back up to where they're getting into Coosa's territory. See, they're getting told about gold mines, which, some sort of mistaken, Now there is gold, right? All through the Appalachians and all that, but chances are you're talking some sort of mistaken copper vein or all the other plentiful, shiny things that can be found down here. Let's look for a good part. Okay, so here they are getting close to Coosa, and let me see if I can get this mic. Unfortunately, it's true. It is alone, so let's balance everything. Can you hear me? You can hear me. Yeah, I can do that. All right, so they're leaving the area of One Chief on their way to Coosa territory. They marched that day down the island, which, as we said, was 5 leagues in length. At its point where the river came together again was founded another town called Acoste. It belonged to another chief quite different from the last one. He received the Castilians in a very different manner than the chief of Ichiaa, for he showed no signs of friendship for them, but on the contrary, placed more than 1,500, see, this is what we're reading for, more than 1,500 Indian warriors under arms, decked out with plumes, having their weapons ready. They kept the latter in their hands, unwilling to put them down, even though they had already received the Spaniards within their town. Full disclosure, if it says Pueblo, you're likely to hear town. When it says Adeladante, you're likely to hear me say governor or Hernando. Vice versa. They unwilling to put them down, even though they had already received the Spaniards in their Pueblo. They showed themselves to be so bold and anxious to fight that there was not a single Indian who, in speaking with a Spaniard, did not boast that he would scratch out his eyes, and they would have done so. If they asked them any questions, they replied, so arrogantly, shaking and throwing their arms about with the fist closed, signs they make when they wish to fight, or so they guess, that their effrontery was insupportable, as was their words and manner, all of which provoked battle, so that often the Castilians lost patience and were ready to engage them. But Hernando prevented it, telling them to endure everything that the Indians did, simply in order not to break the record of peace. And this is important insight into his mindset leading up to Mabilla and his encountering DeSoto, right? Here he is, peace has been long, and so he's telling them to endure these things to keep it going. Telling them to endure everything that the Indians did, simply in order not to break the record of peace that they had maintained up to that point since leaving the warlike province of Appalachia. Thus they did as Hernando commanded, but both sides passed the whole night with their squadrons formed like declared enemies. What's up, old world Missouri? House roll of the corn. What's going on? Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, shout out. I do too. I mean, not that he would ever see this, but this, y'all, is an excellent source for weather, especially as hurricane, I mean, not hurricane, well, hurricane too, but tornado season is wrapping up. Ramping up for us. Y'all, Ryan Hall is like seriously into it, and he puts a lot of stuff, like any money generated into helping victims of these natural are they though occurrences. So I like him too, Sarah. The other dude's good, Max Velocity. It's just Ryan's got like a whole thing built around him, and he seems like just a good dude. You know what I mean? So anyway, there you go. Okay, so now that we said back hello to chat, we were. Oh no, the page turned because we definitely weren't there. Yeah, so okay, we've got them declaring, right. On the next day, the Indians showed themselves, they weren't Indians, were they, to be friendlier. And the chief, so it says the Curaka, that is the chief, and the chief men came with a new aspect to offer Hernando all they had. Again, it says governor, but, screw this guy. It's the best he's going to get from me. To offer the governor all they had in their country. They gave him Indian corn for the march. He understood that a favorable message that the Lord of Ichiaa had sent them regarding the Spaniards must have caused that civility. The general thanked them for the offer, paid for the maize, which satisfied them. On the same day, the Spaniards left the town, crossed the river in canoes and raft, of which there were many, and gave thanks to God for having brought them out of the town of Acoste without having broken the peace which they had kept up to that time. So again, here they are. Been a long, peaceful time. Now, peaceful for them, right? Many of the things that had ensured this peace were kidnapping chiefs, human trafficking, rape, and murder when necessary and often, right? But still, from their perspective, peaceful, right? Until they get to DeSoto. But before DeSoto, hey, what's up, Jacqueline, J. Quills, the other half of Universe Unveiled. Go find Universe Unveiled on YouTube and X. Like, subscribe, and check out, my friends, please. You won't regret it, I promise. All right. How you doing, Jacqueline? How's Canada? Canada. You doing okay up there? You holding shit together? News is weird out of Canada. I'm not going to talk about it here, but it's weird. Okay. So we're getting close to Coosa. Now, let's look for the last okay. So they came, they showed themselves. Yeah, they entered here. So they're happy with their peace. They entered a large province called Coca. Again, I may end up referring it to Coosa, and there may be argument or not about that, but that's what it's called today. Definitely weird. What? Yeah, for sure. The news. What's up? A large province called Coosa. The Indians came out to receive them peaceably and treated them in a very friendly manner, giving them provisions and guides for their march from one town to another. Again, do we get this one town to another, right? The chief and lord of this province had the same name as the province itself. At the place the Spaniards crossed it, it was more than 100 leagues along, all fertile country, very populated, so that on some days of their march through it, they passed 10 or 12 towns, not counting those that were off the road on either side. It is true that the towns were small. The Indians came out of them to receive the Christians very gladly and joyfully, and entertained them in their houses. They gave them whatever they had very willingly, and all along the road those from one town went to the next to serve them. And when the other town had received them, they then returned to their own. So you see what's going on there. Here it's described as, oh, they went with them, but, that's how they went safely, right? You go to one town, and if you didn't have a chief, you just take them, and you go to the next town. They're safe. Let them go back, and you carry forward, right? I mean, that's just, you got to see that in the interpretation easily, right? Because of what they do everywhere. Same name, Kusa. They entertained them in their houses. So it's worth repeating again. Is here just a simple description. It was more than 100 leagues long, all fertile country and very populated, so that on some days of their march through it they passed 10 or 12 towns, not counting those that were off the road. Huh. And they all seem to be, joyful about the invaders. But the leader, Kusa, he bears this out. In this manner, of course, while he's a slave, but still he goes the other way. In this manner, they took the Spaniards throughout the 100 leagues, lodging them some nights in the settlements and others in the fields, as the day's march happened to end, each of which was about 4 leagues in length. The lord of the province of Kusa, who was at the other side of it, sent new messengers every day with the same message, repeated many times, welcoming the arrival of Hernando, requesting that he travel very slowly through his country, resting and enjoying himself as much as he could, and saying that he himself was awaiting him in the chief town of his province in order to serve his lordship, Hernando, and all his people with the affection and goodwill that they would see. The Spaniards marched 23 or 24 days without anything of note negative happening to them, except the many repetitions, the welcomes the Indians gave them before they reached the chief town, where was called and was Kusa. So let's look at this now. This is interesting. They marched 23 or 24 days with the exact same thing he just mentioned happening to them. So on some days of their march, it was common to pass through 10 or 12 towns, right? Not counting the ones they say that were off the road to either side. And this continued as they marched for 23 or 24 days. Okay? And this is through this territory. When you've seen the videos thus far in the series, and when I go there and I say, imagine, here, look at this earthwork or that, and imagine, the population, right, which was here. This is why we're reading this, you see, to get grounded in what the people who were here, the first, Jacob, no, sorry, dog alert. You're cool, dude. Stay there. Don't eat the chair. He's all right. We're getting grounded in these first-hand accounts, right? I think that's obvious. So here we go. What they encountered was towns, up to 10 or 12 on some days, all through this territory, until they get to the main town of the chief, who has been telling him, take your time, enjoy yourself. It's weird. And it's not weird when you think about it, I guess, because this is right before Tuscaloosa's territory, right? So if you're looking at the story arc of something, I mean, this is a great juxtaposition, of the two different receptions, that were possible, and attitudes that could come out of the natives versus this expedition. The Spaniards marched 23 or 24 days without anything of note happening to them except the many repetitions until they reached, okay, so here we are. He advanced, this being the chief, Kusa. He advanced a long league to receive the governor, accompanied by more than 1,000 nobles much adorned, with mantles made of various kinds of skins, Many of them were of fine marten skins that gave off a strong odor of musk. They wore long plumes on their heads. So the musk would have been, intentional. They would have known how to. So that was. It's interesting, that would have been a sign of being an elite, chief, whatever you call it. Let's make sure. Is that the warriors? No, these are the nobles. 1,000 nobles. Okay, here we go. Fine marten skins that gave off a strong odor of musk. They wore long plumes on their head, which are the decoration and adornment that the Indians of this great kingdom most value. These men were well disposed, as those of that country generally are. Their plumes stood up half a fathom high, and were of many and varied colors, and they were stationed in the field in order, in the form of a squadron, with 20 men to a file. Thus they made a handsome and pleasing appearance. So you have 1,000 nobles. You have before them men gathered, big square blocks of 20, very. It's not very savage-like, is it? It's not how it sounds. It sounds so familiar that they have words for it, Squadrons. With this military and lordly pomp and ceremony, the Indians received the general and his captains and soldiers at Hernando, making every possible demonstration of the satisfaction that they said they felt at seeing them in their country. They let you see exact opposite of what they're about to get from Tuscaloosa. They lodged Hernando in one of 3 houses that the chief had in different parts of the town, built in the same form as we have said other such houses were, situated on a height with the advantages that the lord's amound houses have over those of his vassals. The town was established on the bank of a river. It had 500 large and good houses. Now, these are native longhouses, right? Multiple compartments, massive things. In places, they describe them as, if you were to stack it with men, you're talking 800 to 1,200 men in some of these longhouses could fit. Not saying that's what lived there, right? But that was their way of telling you how big these things were, right? The chief had 3 of them all over the town. This is Coosa. This is the very territory, right? We've been looking at all week. We've been in Hatchet Creek, Swamp Creek, Swayback Bridge Trail, Corn Creek, at the Coosa River, right? These are the details they encountered. With this military, lordly pomp and ceremony, the Indians received Hernando and his captain. Oh, we're on to the towns. The town was established on the bank of a river. It had 500 large and good houses, which showed clearly that it was the head of a province so large and important as has been said. They had moved out of half of the town in the vicinity of Hernando's lodgings, where they quartered the captains and soldiers. You get that? So they emptied out to give the soldiers places to stay, if you can call them that. Room for all of them, because the houses would accommodate many people. Again, we're back to how big each house was. The Castilians stayed there 11 or 12 days, being served and entertained by the chief and all of his people, as if they were much beloved brothers. For certainly no expression suffices to tell the affection, care, and diligence with which they served them, so that the Spaniards themselves marveled at it. Listen to this now. The chief, Coosa, offers his state to the governor for an establishment and settlement, and how the army leaves that province. One day, while the Spaniards were in the town called Cusa, its lord, who had eaten at Hernando's table, having talked with him about many things pertaining to the conquest and settlement of the country, and having replied to the entire satisfaction of Hernando to everything that he had asked him on this subject, when it seemed to him time, arose, and making the general a deep and very respectable obeisance. So I guess he's saying he bowed, right? Or somehow he left after the custom of the Indians, and turning his eyes to the gentlemen who were on either side of the governor, Hernando, speaking to them all, said, Sir, so this is Cusa, right? The affection I have come to feel for your lordship and for all your people in these few days that I have known you leads me to beg that, if you are seeking good lands on which to settle, see fit to remain in mine, make an establishment in them. I believe that this is one of the best provinces that your lordship would have seen among all that those are in his kingdom, and moreover, I assure your lordship that you have chanced to pass through and see the poorest and least desirable parts of it. So see, he's telling them there's much more here. If your lordship should desire to examine it more closely, I will take you through other better parts that will satisfy you entirely, and you can take whatever part of them seems best to you for settling and establishing your house and your court. If you do not wish to grant me this favor at present, at least do not refuse to remain in this town during the coming winter, which is near, where we will serve you as your lordship will see by our actions. Then at your leisure, your lordship, can send your captains and your soldiers to examine all parts of my country and bring you accurate reports of what I have said for your lordship's better satisfaction. Now, again, we come here to the 2 pages that Jacob ate, and I'm going to get a sip of coffee and check the chat. What's going on, guys? Again, thanks for tuning in. How are we? We're about 45 minutes. So we've about met my goal, I think, for giving everyone an idea of numbers. You see here Kusa's attitude painted, but you also see a province described by the Spaniards as one of the wealthiest and like best they'd seen, and then you have the chief saying no, but there's like so much more. You've just came in through the shitty section. I've got the bougie section over here, right? So where we lost the page is literally the next page is 327 of this particular book, where the title is Concerning the Fearless Chief Tuscaloosa. Again, here you got a spelling that is Tascaluca with a C, but it's sort of the same thing that happened. You got Coca with a C, but it's Cusa. So again, you've got Tuscaloosa. How yeah. Who was almost a giant in how he received Hernando. I do want to do a little antediluvian peek at one. I got one kind of in my mind, a nice short one. But it would probably be a shame not to put in at least reading. I mean, we've seen Cusa. Let's see a little of Tuscaloosa. And saying thank you again, anybody who's tuning in to the 3rd episode of the 3rd week of Finding Things Within and Without. Again, just very different things every episode. So everybody, we're doing a little reading because it needs to be done. It's appropriate. I'm trying different things. I tried to do it at 11:30 last night, but the software was acting up. So here we are this morning before I have to do another show as committed to this evening. So we have the description of Cusa's territory. before they get to his town, 23, 24 days, they march, and they are seeing up to 10 to 12 towns a day. I mean, what's going on with that, right? That's not that's not the image I've been given, right? You've been given inadvertently. It doesn't matter. You know, the narrative hands us these cultural centers, right? These mound centers, which perchance have been not buried under lakes or have actually been found, right? And properly documented. There are so many which have not, right? And again, through no fault of anybody, what I kind of, I'm not here for that. What I see that is played out in what we teach our children, and therefore what the narrative is that you got these big, occasional cultural centers from Cahokia on down, and then what? I got some mound centers over in Louisiana, right? We've got Poverty Point, massive, right? Mounds documented is what my brain's thinking here. Scattered all over Louisiana, right? Mississippi. A lot of these are like 1 to 3 mound sites, And they just keep going. They keep going here, as described here. But what interests me most are these little bits we can get about how many people there were. Despite these big towns, where these big mounds, where, as it says here, the chief lived. They weren't just some ceremonial, the chiefs and all the thousands, right? Thousands, and in any particular area of noblemen, right? Who then had their own little bits of army men, running around out in front of them. And then for 23 days, they passed 10 to 12 towns. Admittedly, they're little towns, but 10 to 12 for them to call a town and to say they're more off. Okay? Everywhere. Now, when I go and I show you, as I have been, this beautiful, this magical, this powerful places, right? Even today, there's not as many people living in and around this impact crater in this area of Elmore County, right? In that whole area that there would have been at that time. Millions, right, Jacqueline? There were millions. So, that was my goal in that. And let's read about what they encounter for a second over at Tuscaloosa. Hernando was in the town of Tallahassee 10 days. So this would have been still sort of in Coosa's territory, right? Learning about all the remaining regions through which he must go on his journey, and what was the surrounding provinces on either side of this town. Meanwhile, a son of Tuscaloosa arrived. A youth, 18 years old, of such good stature that he was head and shoulders taller than any of the Spaniards or Indians in the army. Head and shoulders. They all agree. He was accompanied by many nobles. He brought a message from his father, Tuscaloosa, in which the latter offered the governor his friendship, his person, and his state, to be made use of at his pleasure. The general received him in a very friendly manner. Hernando. The nobles brought Hernando received him in a very friendly manner. He treated him with great respect, both because of his rank and of his elegance and fine bearing. Tuscaloosa's son. After delivering his message and learning that Hernando desired to go where his father Tuscaloosa was, he said, "Sir, in order to go there, though we are no more than 12 or 13 leagues away, there are 2 roads I beg your lordship to order 2 Spaniards to go by way of one and return by the other, so that they may see which one of them is better for your lordship to take. I will furnish guides who will take and bring them back safely. This was done, and one of the 2 who went to discover the roads was Juan de Villalobos. And one of the 2 who went to discover the road, who had gone in search of the gold mines, and had found them to be brass, copper. He was always most anxious to see first, ahead of his companions, whatever was to be found. We don't care about what you were looking for. We know you wanted gold, Juan Villalobos. When the 2 companions came back with the report concerning the roads, the governor, Hernando, took leave of the good chief and his people. So this is Cusa. This is where he's leaving Cusa, who were very sad because the Castilians were leaving their country. The general went by way of the road, and they told him was the most suitable, and crossed the Rio de Talasi, Talapusa or Cusa, in rafts and canoes, it being so full of water that they could not ford it. They marched 2 days, and early on the 3rd day they came in sight of the town where the chief Tuscaloosa was. It was not the chief town of this state, but one of the others. Learning from his runners that the Hernando was approaching, Tuscaloosa went out from the town to meet him. He was on a small high hill, an eminence from which mound much of the country could be seen in every direction. He had with him only, again, compared to what they'd been seeing, we had 1,000 over there. Only 100 nobles, richly dressed, and these numbers also vary by chronicler. Richly dressed in fine mantles of various kinds of furs, long plumes on their heads, according to their usual manner of dress. They were all on foot except Tuscaloosa, who was seated in a chair such as the lords of those lands use. They are of wood, about a terracia, or 1/3 of a vara, so a foot, right? A foot and a half in height, with a somewhat concave seat and without a backrest or arms, all made in one piece. Near him was a standard bearer, carrying a large banner made of yellow deerskin with 3 blue bars dividing it from one side to the other. It was the same size and shape as the standards the company of cavalry carry in Spain. It was a new thing for the Spaniards to see military insignia, for up to that time they had not seen a standard or a banner or a guidon. I think that might have alerted him. The build of Tuscaloosa was like that of his son, for he towered over all the others by more than half a vara, and appeared to be a giant, or was one half a vara, foot and a half above everybody else. He appeared to be a giant, or was one, and the rest of his body and his face were in proportion to his height. His countenance was handsome, and habitually wore such a severe expression that his aspect showed well the ferocity and nobility of his spirit. His shoulders corresponded to his stature. His waist was a little more than 2 terracias around. His arms and legs were straight, well set, and proportionate to his body. In short, he was the tallest. Pun, you think that was in there? In short, he was the tallest Indian and of the finest figure that these Castilians saw in all of their travels through La Florida. It's enough to give one pause, is it not? It's enough to if one were to sit with it, to then travel out into this landscape, this setting where this chief was, you would expect to find some extraordinary things. You would expect to find some things that you don't see represented elsewhere, not only for what was just described as the chief, but now look at the setting. Look at the 85 million year old impact crater. Look at the landscape I've been showing you. Look at what I've been trying to say about the power of a place. You know, we don't gloss over all the chroniclers. I mean, they all say it this way, right? An impact crater with material which scientists today tell me is not from Earth, found in the cores. Quartz everywhere, right? What was this place, man? These giant winged serpent earthworks bearing Tuscaloosa's son, I posit, in a mound. A mound made so well to represent this crater, guys, that the Crusoe, where I've been exploring, and these little islands where I'm pulling everything, they fucking like put that in too. In short, he was the tallest Indian and of the finest figure that these Castilians saw in all their travels through La Florida. Tuscaloosa was waiting for the governor in the manner that has been told, and though the gentlemen and captains of the army who marched ahead of Hernando reached the place where he was, Tuscaloosa made no move toward them, nor any sign whatever of civility, as if he did not see them and they were not passing by him. Okay, so he's a giant. Most impressive thing they've seen. And as everyone, now let's not forget that horses, I mean, armored men, not only as though he did not see them, but as if though they were not there. Thus he remained until the governor came up, Hernando. And when he saw Hernando approaching, he stood up and advanced 15 or 20 paces to receive him. Hernando dismounted and embraced him, and the two remained in the same place, talking, while the army was being quartered in the town and outside of it. Because there was not room for all of the men in it, then the two went together into Hernando's house, which was near the house of Tuscaloosa, where he left Hernando and went with his Indians. The Spaniards rested in that town 2 days. On the third day, they proceeded on their journey. As a sign of his great friendship for Hernando, Tuscaloosa wanted to accompany him. They took him as a slave, is what they did, every town. But obviously, there's a trap being laid here, right? As is evident. The governor ordered that a saddle horse be made ready for Tuscaloosa, as he had always done with the chiefs, you see, lords or vassals who had traveled with him, though we have neglected to mention it until now. Among all, they were trying not to say that he was kidnapping him, even though he does, make note of that in here a little. To the point. The governor ordered that a saddle horse be made until now. Among all of the horses that were with the army, not one was found that could bear and carry Tuscaloosa because of his large body. Not because he was fat, for as we have said, his girth was less than Avara, nor was he corpulent with old age, because he was scarcely 40 years old. I guess this is their guessing. Making further search for a for a horse that Tuscaloosa could ride, the Spaniards found what they call here a pack. So you're talking, some sort of big horse that would be used to carry the heavy shit. Because it was so strong, this horse could carry Tuscaloosa. However, he was so tall that when he mounted this horse, his feet cleared the ground by only a hand breadth. Big guy. The governor was no little relieved that a horse had been found that Tuscaloosa could ride, and he was not disturbed because they mounted him on a pack horse. All right. So if I go much further, we're going to start getting into Mabilla, and I'm at an hour, and that was not my goal. My goal was to succinctly, well, that's it, Jacqueline. That's it. All right. I bet they found such an impressive civilization that they were taken aback because they didn't have a clue it was over here and they were intimidated. Yeah, as is stated, the chroniclers try to use language, even though this particular guy does make some admissions, about atrocities, that were happening. But he does, even this guy is trying to frame it. It's all very much from the Spanish perspective, But where he could not even help it, there is marveling, as you said. They didn't even have words for what they were encountering, and that's what I've been trying to document so far, guys. Yeah, I'm at an hour. I don't know if I should segue, I guess, for a little watch along video. I think I'm just gonna pick a random. There's only 9. How random can that be? A video from antediluvian Alabama. So far, everybody in the chat, you guys know my work, so there's not really anything terribly new I can show you guys. But if anybody watching has anything they'd like to see here in these last few minutes, or like to ask me or have me talk about, go right ahead. But I believe I achieved my goal here with this hour, roughly 40 minutes. I did some reading, was just to show you what these firsthand accounts tell us about what was on this land, which I have been documenting and showcasing to you. Yeah? Okay. Now, if we were to completely extricate ourselves, well, yeah, the chronicler, exactly. The chronicler, Jacqueline, has his own agenda, 100%. Charlotte, you hungry? Okay, I'll be done here shortly. Let me know what you want. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's exactly what he's doing. And now, to confound everyone that was into the DeSoto story and is into that, I want to look at some oddities. The other half of my work, which is actually, it is a whole story, right? Again, I'm going to take this series to try to start telling the story of the things I found in this territory and the things I found north of this territory in stone, which beg for explanation. Now, it took me 9 episodes of, again, loosely touching the surface of the amount of material I have to try to get out the most prominent anomalies and questions I have found from central Alabama northward of this place where we've just been reading about, that point to something far older, right? thus antediluvian, something pre-catastrophe. For I guess all my friends watching, know what I'm speaking of. Younger Dryas era, etc., etc. There's a lot to catch up with if you're not familiar, but you all should have a narrative for it. No matter which culture you know something about, you've heard of a worldwide disaster and flood. Floods and things went very, very awry, and the scientific data has backed up much of this. Pulse 1A, 1B, water levels. Okay, we good? We good. So let's jump over to antediluvian Alabama, guys, and please know that as we continue, I'm going to be sort of splitting, dancing around these two with these episodes because I do sort of like to go where I feel the story wants to take itself. And my main goal in the beginning, up till episode now, 8, we're at, has been to just start to show where this story played out. Now, here at the end of episode 3, my third week of trying all this on my own, I am going to just watch some stuff that I like of my work because I really, 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 really like this part of it as well, right? And again, guys, it's all going to tie together. But if I started going into it here now, I'd go into 2 hours, and I got to do other shows today, man. So let's flip over to YouTube, and let's just look at one that came to my mind earlier that I want to see if anybody's got anything to say on, because that's what I'm in this for, is to share what I'm finding, most of which is questions, right? Things that pose many questions, right? To me, to what I'm observing. So one of those, this is a nice 9-minute video. So we're going to get well within our time here. Again, antediluvian Alabama, guys, you can go to the YouTube you're watching me this on. Unless you're on Facebook, welcome everybody. Let me remember how to manage my screens. Not remember, it's that every single app, and so every single window, every single different way I use to share with you guys is got a little bit different functionality. Okay, but I have that where I want it, and I have this where I want it. Okay, let's watch a little something pretty from North Alabama. This is up on Lookout Mountain, all right? I've been pretty diligent about showing you guys maps, but we're pushing time today, my own set time boundaries, and Charlotte's hungry. So let's look at a little 9-minute video and welcome you to the other half of what I've been digging into here in Alabama. All right, we're sharing the right one. Let's blow it up. Perfect. Let's come back over here. Let's at least, there you go. Now in case you got something to say about it. And we need to get back to the one that's playing. Boom. Here we go, guys. Okay, so I call this the quartz conundrum. I explain in the video, so I'm just going to let it play. Cool logo. Welcome to Antediluvian Alabama short form. I've been advised that even though I'm shooting for episodic length with no commercials, by the way, I should try some short form for the short attention spans. So here we go. I'm going to throw one here that's under 10 minutes that addresses the, let's call it, quartz conundrum. So if you've watched so far, you will have noticed that all of these large stones, no matter their size in North Alabama on Lookout Mountain, contain small white quartz pebbles trapped in a matrix that, even as my daughter Isabella noticed when we were walking up an old pathway, probably from the 50s, leaving one of the tourist overlooks, and she looks down and she says, same,
because it did. It looks the same. It looks just like concrete everywhere up there, right? I'm really trying to evidence that because I believe it is a conundrum, and I believe it leads right into my hypothesis about what it is that we are actually seeing. Evidence of a high heat, high energy event from our ancient past, namely the Younger Dryas comet impact event. So here we are. This look will be along the west fork of the Little River, and you will notice the quartz everywhere. But as I trickle myself up a trickling primary spring, you will also notice the very odd shaped rock, right? Very odd, definitely not natural. And you will, of course, notice these pieces of rock that as you go down all the way from the top of the canyon around this river to the bottom are piled everywhere, right? Evidence of a high energy event. Enjoy your look here on antediluvian Alabama, where we know that our best future does require the truth of our past.
And what you have here for anyone that may not be familiar with my work is, yeah, you see all these little white specks in there? Okay, those are little white quartz pebbles, right? That's what they are. And they're everywhere. Now, the circle, it's rusting. It's metal. I find it elsewhere, all over the place. Yeah, this is on Lookout Mountain. Flat plane. Flat plane. I mean, it's a 90. It's like the corner of something. For you new guys, you see, I mean, it's just everywhere. It's. I couldn't say this is like one spot. I couldn't. It's just everywhere. It's everywhere. Like this scattering of the rocks. But beautiful, again, beautiful. This is territory. So this is the West Fork, to keep it on point with the episode so far. I mean, it does have, the reason I first went here is because this feeds into a large waterfall, which we call today is named DeSoto Falls, because DeSoto did go there. That is the one place we can, for sure pinpoint, because he's like, DeSoto Falls. We know, I mean, not because it was named that then, but because it's well described. They dived it, they got the depth, all that stuff. So that, is what first pulled me up there. Was let me go see this place. Hernando, buzzed by. Yeah, and then I started taking a good look around. But to the native point, they would have been here too. Look at this place. What a sanctuary. It really is. Just what a sanctuary. It's just without my breathing. It's an incredible little place, the West Fork. Really is. And that's all I'm trying to, give you a shot of here. Again, watch all 9 episodes, just giving you guys a little piece here. But it's this quartz conundrum we'll get to. Let it play, Jason. I haven't watched these back, honestly. So
Metal.
All right, now look here. Yeah.
Just like the one I showed you over at Little River Canyon. Miles and
All right, I'm telling you guys because I'm there, and again, it's all over. I've documented it. Look at this rock, okay? Look how it looks melting. Look how you've got like this staining, on it, right? And look how it looks like a piece of poured concrete where you see that height. What I see is signs of heat at some point or some sort of melting, right? Because even this metal, which begins to show itself, looks melted, you know, almost like almost like a modern day equivalent would be like a piece of rebar in some sort of concrete. I mean, you see here, look at all these little, those are white quartz pebbles. Okay, they're just little pebbles of quartz that are trapped in this gray stone. You see how it's smooth over here? Okay, you'd never know it's full of white gray pebbles. But then over here, where it's sort of like busted open, you see it looks like concrete in this piece of metal here. And this is just one of the random rocks that's everywhere
Miles from
on this
here,
mountain.
quartz.
You want to go down an interesting hole? Go look for the geologic explanation of Lookout Mountain. Homework.
Let's start with our friend the quartz rock here and its striations. And look.
Now let's take a little closer look here. Let me find a good get my hand out of the way. I hope.
Start with our friend the quartz rock here.
Pause, Jason. Where's it at? There it is. Yeah. Okay. You see what I mean very clearly here by the little quartz pebbles. Okay. Everywhere that in these spots that seem worn, melted. See if I can. Can I take it back one frame? When you see the larger stone, right? You can see smooth, right? Watch this. Let's see if this works.
Let's start with our friend the quartz.
Okay, you see how that's blurry, but that's what I'm. That's the point of this video, is to ask questions about this
Quartz rock here. And it's
there we can see. Okay, you see up here these little knobs and nodules. This is the same stone, Okay, very very strange. Look at that there. Up top here is little like it's like a button. It's like worn up underneath, right, and flared, melted again. Just a word. It's what it looks like, guys, when you're there looking at it. And then flat, and you can see these striations, right, of some sort, and they match up some with that, and you can see all through here where it's worn. You can see through as you can in this big bit here. There's a whole bunch of quartz pebbles exposed, right? Okay.
Striations. And let's look in here. So how did this jumble of rocks get here, I wonder? Look, it didn't happen by any standard natural explanation. This is a rock.
Look at this, guys, okay? So, look, that's the thing. It's when we get to talking antediluvian Alabama more here, what you get seen over the whole thing is it's everywhere. Look at this little tiny thing. Okay, I'm just walking along the river. It's roughly a trail, it's it's supposed to be there. And I see this little spring growing up, and I see this pile, and I ask myself questions. You ask yourself a question: how did this pile get here? Right? And then you see it kind of strewn, and then you look down everywhere. This is just one little example, everywhere, and you go, why is this rock? This is the same material as all these other rocks piled up. Why does it have a little notch in it? Why is it squared out? And you just do that on repeat over and over and over and over and over again everywhere you walk in this area on top of this mountain, spread across miles from Tennessee to Alabama.
That's the top of one of these. the rectangle. Block. Oh, and this. How did this pile arrive here? I do wonder. Look, another rock with a 90-degree cut. Very odd features on it. But what is this sheet doing here? And who set that thing there? That's about as far as I can get.
You hear the geese. It's a beautiful place. Magical place.
Oh, we're missing the call of the wildlife. All right, I'm gonna get back to my afternoon hike. But and that, and last but not least, this weird sucker. Shit. Explanations? Other than a lot of energy.
I still have
Blowing.
the feather there. The feather fell out of a bird literally while I was doing this hike.
A lot of wildlife.
You see the geese
Here,
there.
nothing but wildlife.
And yeah, I still have the feather.
The energy wasn't blowing the wildlife, it was blowing these rocks.
Airbursts. Okay. Giant explosions. Now let's revisit this quartz issue as I remember to grab my headphones there. Magical place, guys.
Oh, aren't you rounded? Nice and smooth. Quartz and striations. Quartz in striations.
So what I mean by striations is, let's take a quick look here. It moves in horizontal, or, you know, if this is the rock's original position, very, very easily to read layers in many places, right? But then, you know, it'll also, you'll see, melt with it, where sedentary is just not, as you've hopefully seen so far, does not do it.
In striations.
Especially with the circle, as Jacqueline But it's all these rocks, guys. You see every rock scattered about? Every rock has these little white pebbles in it. Except for once you do get in the creek there, you know, you start encountering.
All right, well, unfortunately, my friends, I cannot listen to music and continue this hike.
See
so I'm going to clip it
what
here.
What appears to be layering.
Quartz. It's like somebody spilled a damn concrete truck.
Exactly what it's like.
We'll end it with this piece. Look. Here. And then runs.
That's one piece. That's one long piece of stone.
15 feet, 20 feet.
Okay, it's not a wall. It's one long piece of stone where the tip's broken off right
grooving
there.
all along it.
You see the tip broken.
Thanks for watching, y'all. I'm going to get back to watching these rocks and listening to some tunes.
Okay, and then right here, we get to our question.
I'm tired, and I'm headed in. But I have a serious question. We've got...
Okay, now you see there at the foot of my thumb. Okay, those are white, guys. It's white quartz. You've seen my work. You see how much time I spend in the creeks and shit. Those are little white pebbles, okay? For clarification, for explanation, which I'm seeking, right? Now, this is another big rock.
Our quartz rocks, the concrete-looking mixture. It's every one of these rocks that I've shown you for the past days, weeks, and months. It's every rock out here.
You see them, I hope. It's one long stone, guys.
Why? What does that? Serious question.
Sorry for the messiness there.
Thank you.
Okay, so there we are. There's a short episode of Antediluvian Alabama. I could sit here and, no joke, do this with you guys all day. I love this stuff, okay? And what you saw there, if that was one small part, right? Of what all I'm trying to showcase from on top of that mountain. There are things that simply beggar explanation, and I have had as much said to me by look into. I told you to look into what people say about how this mountain was formed. Even that, they're like they have to go to some pretty extreme guesses. Okay, this place is strange. Little River Canyon, strange. Okay, if you want to see a glimpse of that strangeness, go to my YouTube channel. I have a playlist. I have several playlists set up of my different types of shows and types of work I do. Okay. All the other shows I do, but I have one entitled Antediluvian Alabama. I think there's 9 episodes in there. Just go start and give me some feedback, you know, if you make it through all of them. Because I know for a fact that what you're going to encounter in those 9 episodes cannot be explained by traditional narratives. You know, that's why I've spent years, years dedicated to collecting this knowledge, and I'm still doing it every day and creating this show. You know, and with the help of others who have had me on their shows, try to start telling the story, which is so very big, which goes from, you know, Hernando Desoto in Tuscaloosa back, much further back than our traditional narrative would like for us to believe. But if you look, there is plenty of proof that the people who are leading this world believe in and know. Every culture, every religion just about tells you about a time before. Do yourself a favor if anything in you says, perhaps, if that picture you saw of me in front of that large metal circle intrigues you, go watch. There's another one just down the hill, exact same, in a much smaller piece of rock, as though it was blown off of that. On and on and on. It's a big mystery, and I look forward to diving into it with you guys. I really do. And I thank you for joining me today and through all of the previous episodes and all those to come. I hope you enjoyed the reading. Let me know, you know. I haven't read in public in a while, but I can do it, and I do like it. If you guys enjoy that, we'll make sure we keep with a couple of reading segments of these firsthand accounts of this land, upon which I'm sharing with you all. And with that, it is 1:30. No, I mean I'm at an hour 30. It is 1:02 Central Standard Time. And I guess I'm going to sign off, guys. I had a goal. I did it. I met my standard time. It's my third show of the week. Tonight, we'll have the Roundtable Chronicles with Vincent Barrows, Rick Osman, Ricardo Calvario, History, Myths, and Legends, and myself. Thanks, Jacqueline. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, no, the one below that. Sorry, I already showed that one. Good. I'm glad this is working, and thank you all for your feedback and for staying with me as I sort of let it evolve and see what we can turn it into here on Finding Things Within and Without live, doing it live for you guys. So thank you, and so that I can learn. What's upcoming? We're gonna look at, we're gonna probably sort of evolve into looking at some of my early Rumble videos. I did a series on Rumble. There were 8 of them. That was my first use of the title, Finding Things Within and Without. And so we will probably go there next or semi-next. I leave room for the inspiration to start to get some of the, what you'd call backstory, right? On me, a little, not, not linger there, but simply how it is I fell into, was dragged into, was saved by, my experiences with God and with the entire spiritual realm, which simply means the things for which our limited senses, we're told, don't detect. But this goes back to much of the things that have been hidden from us and much of the power that one can educate oneself on, that these natives, held, knew. That humans for many, many, many epochs, even those which we've been told didn't exist, when all of our cultures, all of our narratives, all of everything screams at us, our own amnesia from behind that fog screams at us a memory that there's something to this, right? There's something to this. These triangular mounds of rubble, this quartz. Here, I stopped it before the very, very, very tail end. I forgot it, that video. I put Isabella and I walking out of the inn, looking at the concrete walkway at the park. And Isabella just looks down and she says, "It's the same, Dad. It's the same, Okay, there's 30-30. There's a look at some of what I do, some of what's to come, and I'll see you later tonight on another show. Remember, our best future requires the truth of our past. Love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.